Welcome back to I don't know why I sang like that. Welcome back to RealTalk.
I said this.
Hey, we really do need an intro so we don't just do this every time.
You're like, these poor girls, click, shut them off.
I know, seriously. Well, I guess I don't need to hear about what they're talking about today. Well, you do, actually.
Yes.
Because you've been saying that a lot of people have been asking about the NAR lawsuit and everything that's been happening.
I get asked in a bar, actually, the other day.
Yeah.
I keep talking about bars. People are going to think I'm a drunk, right? I'm not always in the bar.
That's where you find your peace. There's nothing wrong with that.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I escape.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think everybody's been seeing it for a long time, probably close to a year, right? Well, it's finally becoming official, August 1st.
Yes.
There's the official changes, and it's so interesting because there's really not a whole lot changing.
Yeah.
It's basically we can't advertise buyer agent commission in the MLS.
Okay.
And what that is how much the seller is actually advertising to pay a buyer agent. Okay?
Which is important because, buyer agents want to know what their commission's going to be if they help their clients buy this house.
And the house.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest misinformation is I went on a listing appointment a couple months ago and the seller said, well, I don't want to pay a buyer agent and I don't believe the government wants me to either. And that was my response, and it was
baseball.
Yeah, and it was like, gosh, it's a couple of things I want to put out there right away. First of all, you never had to pay a buyer agent.
Yeah.
You don't have to now, but you were never required to pay any agent ever. You could always sell your house for sale by owner. Nobody ever forced you to. 6% is not required.
Yeah.
You could pay 1%. You still can pay 1%. You could pay 12%. Everything's negotiable, and it still will be negotiable.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, all they're telling us is we can't advertise in the MLS how much buyer agent the seller is going to compensate. And I think the other thing that's important to know is buyers are a little confused because, buyers agents have historically, not all, but a lot of them have said, I'm free, come use me.
We've seen ads like that recently.
We have, and that's kind of what caused a lot of the lawsuit. Because, buyers were just like, oh, hey, that's fantastic. They signed buyer agency agreements. It's the same buyer agency agreement that buyers have been signing really since the 80s, I think is about when buyer agency came into effect.
Yeah.
And essentially the buyer's always been responsible for compensating their buyer's agent.
Sure.
Okay, but it's negotiated from the seller.
Yeah. And
that's not going to change.
No.
So there's not a whole lot that's changing. Honestly, they're just making agents jump through a ton of hoops.
That's what it seems like. It just makes it, more complicated in regards to, negotiation and discussion of the compensation and stuff.
And what makes it really difficult is right now we kind of sit down and we go on a listing appointment and the seller says, I'll pay X amount of commission total. From that, we kind of say, okay, we're going to give this amount to the listing agent, this amount to the buyer's agent.
Yeah.
Right? And then we advertise it to the buyer's agents, and so they know up front. Well, now the buyer's agent doesn't necessarily know what their commission is being paid from the seller because we can't advertise it. The buyer knows, okay, I'm responsible for paying, this percentage to my agent.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how they structure their offer.
Yeah.
So if I were to submit an offer to a seller, the seller kind of doesn't know if they can accept the offer because they don't know the amount of the commission coming to the agent. Yeah. So that's where it's really made it very tricky in the way that they've changed the way that we've done it. So there's been a lot of things that we've had to restructure and a lot of things that we've had to do. But ultimately what buyers and sellers need to realize is the commission still is coming, for the most part, coming out of the seller's proceeds.
Yes.
That's not going to change.
Yeah.
Now, of course, everything can be negotiable.
Yes.
Every agent and seller can negotiate percentages. Every buyer and agent can negotiate percentages. that has always been the case.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Yeah.
And, you know, with a VA loan, you can't really, the buyer can't pay their buyer agent commissions. So there's talks of that being restructured because of this. So things do get a little bit spicy in certain ways.
Yeah.
You know, we can always, if the seller refuses to pay a buyer agent commission, we can always ask for it in closing costs, and then the buyer can pay for it. You can't do that on a VA loan, but you know, so there's just a lot of moving parts, but they're the same moving parts.
Yes.
We're just moving them around, essentially.
Yeah. And every transaction is going to be different no matter what.
Correct.
And we just have to make sure, you know, that we cover our bases. You know, us as, you know, you being the realtor and everything, and then the clients as well. Like, we need to just have straight, honest, blunt communication about it.
Yep.
Have compensation agreements.
Yep.
You know, like that's what I've noticed is that we're doing more of those because of this, you know, like making sure that it's crystal clear what the commission is.
Yep.
And who's going to pay it.
Correct.
I mean, and that's just what it comes down to. Yeah, I've noticed that it's gotten a little bit, I mean, it hasn't even gone into effect yet. And it's like,
well, and I think that's what it comes down to is making sure that you're working with an agent. So we are by the book with contracts. We're by the book with making sure that we have addendums and you know, everything that we do is extremely by the book.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's important to, you know, if you're a buyer or seller in today's market, you're a little confused by it, just sit down with an agent, have it explained to you. Like I said, you know, I'm in a group with a couple of good agents and we're working through the details of this, but for the most part, this is how we've kind of always handled things. And so we're not really concerned with a lot of these changes because this is how we've always handled it. This is how I've always explained buyer agency to all my buyers. And again, I think a big part of this lawsuit is because agents didn't know how to market themselves. They didn't know how to market their value to their buyers. And so their only value was, hey, I'm free. And they really weren't.
And it just makes it even more complicated.
Yeah, and so I think clients felt a little befooled, what's that word, befuzzled, tricked, essentially.
Yes.
Right? In the fact that they were
the
like,
fool,
yeah, you know, and so, but again, everything's negotiable.
Yes.
In
That's,
any deal.
yes.
And that's what everybody needs to remember.
Yeah, I mean, whenever something changes, you know, there's always gonna be people asking like, what's actually changing? Like, what's gonna happen? What do I have to do? And what the sellers and buyers have to do is talk to a good agent.
Correct.
Have the agent explain things. Make it very crystal clear. That's where it goes back to finding a good agent who knows what they're talking about, especially when it comes to a big change like this. So, I mean, that's what it really boils down to.
Yeah. And I mean, gosh, I would definitely look for somebody that's been in the market before COVID.
Definitely, please. COVID agents.
Brutal. Yeah.
The epidemic of COVID agents.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it, right? Because now that we're back in the industry of, you know, needing to negotiate, needing to do repairs, needing to actually, you know, take time to do. Oh my gosh, we had that agent the other day that I was like, hey, you know, your offer is not contingent on financing, but yet your buyer is doing lending and this, that. How did he reply? He literally said, I'm not worried about the contract. I don't have time to worry about the contract. We'll deal with it when we're under contract.
And you had to figure that out.
And I was like, what? Like, the contract's the most important thing.
That is the entire backbone of everything that happens in a transaction.
Right?
Like,
and once we're in a contract, it's too late. Like, all those details are like finalized. And, but that's what we're seeing right now.
There's some people who have been like, you know, you've been kind of worried that they're like gonna back out or do something. You're like, we're under contract. Like, you know, we're doing what we need to do. And you need to figure your crap out, you know?
They don't understand. But we haven't had to deal with that during COVID. The last couple of years, it's just been like
quick.
Yeah, and they don't understand due diligence. They don't understand all of the things because they don't know how to deal with repairs. They didn't have to.
Yeah, exactly. So find a good agent who who has, had experience pre-COVID and now, knows how to transition back into post-COVID, because, like we talked about the other week, like completely different market. So.
Yeah. So anyway, you have questions about the NAR changes, what that means for you as a buyer or a seller, that I wasn't able to answer, or you're still a little unsure of, just reach out. Also, if you guys, have thoughts or ideas you want us to talk about, whether it's personal or real estate related,
anything,
let us know. We're happy to talk. We're open books.
We yap a lot, so we'll be happy to yap in front of a camera.
That's right. We are not shy people at all, not proud of us. So happy to share.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.